Rain had fallen the night before, and the forest still smelled like wet leaves. The wind was cold. Jacob zipped up his old jacket and stepped outside his cabin, holding a warm mug of coffee. He looked at the edge of the woods where the trees stood like dark shadows. That's where he saw her again. Every night at the same time, she didn't speak. She didn't move much. She just sat on the large round rock, half hidden behind the tall trees. Her glowing eyes always stared in his direction, not angry, not afraid, just watching. He wasn't sure what she was. She looked like a girl, young and beautiful, but with black fur down her arms and legs, sharp claws, and a long tail that curled behind her like a quiet snake. Two wolf-like ears twitched on her head whenever the wind changed. Her face was calm, but otherworldly. Her skin pale like the moon. The first time Jacob saw her, he thought he was dreaming. But the second night, and the third, she came again, always at the same time. She never came closer. She never crossed the invisible line between forest and yard. It was like she was waiting for something, or someone. Jacob had moved to the forest a year ago to escape the war. Earth wasn't safe anymore. The colonies had fallen silent one by one, and now strange creatures had begun to appear in the night skies. No one knew where they came from, only that they weren't human. Some called them aliens. Some called them monsters. Others just ran. Jacob didn't run. He just wanted peace. After what happened to his unit, to his brother, he didn't want to see another gun, another soldier, another dying face. But now this girl, this werewolf-like alien, sat outside his home like a ghost from a forgotten world. He had tried speaking to her, whispering across the clearing. But she never replied. She only tilted her head slightly, as if trying to understand his voice. One night, he had left food near the edge of the woods. Bread and apples. By morning, the food was gone, but no footprints remained. Now it had become a routine. Every night, Jacob sat on his porch with coffee in hand, while the girl appeared from the trees and waited on her stone. Sometimes she stayed for 10 minutes, sometimes longer. Then, like smoke, she would slip back into the forest without a sound. Jacob told no one. Not that he had anyone left to tell, but tonight, something felt different. The air was heavy. The trees seemed too quiet. The birds had vanished. Even the wind had stopped. Jacob stepped off his porch and slowly walked toward the edge of the woods. He didn't go far, just a few steps beyond his fence. He held his hands open to show he meant no harm. The girl didn't move, but her ears turned toward him. I don't know what you want, he said gently, but I'm not your enemy. Her eyes blinked once. Her long tail twitched. Jacob took one more step, his boots crunching softly on the wet leaves. Are you Are you waiting for someone else? She stood up. Her body moved with smooth, silent grace. She was tall, almost his height. The black fur on her arms shimmered in the moonlight. She stepped down from the rock and walked forward 1 step, 2. Jacob froze. She was crossing the line. She stopped just a few feet away, close enough that he could see the strange patterns in her eyes. Like stars. Then, very softly, she whispered, "Safe?" Jacob's heart skipped. It was the first time she had spoken. "Yes," he said, his voice barely above the wind. "You're safe here." She looked around slowly, then pointed to the sky. "War," she said. Jacob nodded. "Yes, a big one." Her hand moved to her chest, then to him. "Not fight, you?" "No," Jacob whispered. "No fight." She stared at him for a long moment, then slowly sat down again, this time not on the rock, but on the path right in front of him. She folded her arms, curled her tail, and lowered her head like a tired animal finding peace. She wasn't watching him anymore. She was resting, and Jacob knew, deep in his chest, that whatever she had run from, it was still out there. And it might come here next. He looked up at the dark sky. where no stars shone through the thick clouds. Something was coming, and now, he wasn't alone anymore. The morning was cold, but peaceful. Birds returned to the trees, and the wind carried the smell of pine. Jacob sat on his porch again, but this time, he wasn't alone. She was still there. The alien werewolf girl had not gone back into the forest. She was sitting by the fire pit he built long ago, her tail curled around her legs like a blanket. Her dark fur looked warm, but her eyes were heavy with exhaustion. Her claws rested gently on the ground. Jacob didn't speak right away. He didn't want to scare her. He walked quietly, holding a steaming bowl of oatmeal with honey. He placed it on the edge of the fire ring and stepped back. She looked at the bowl, then at him, then back at the bowl. Slowly, she leaned forward and sniffed the food. Her nose twitched. Carefully, with 2 clawed fingers, she picked up the spoon and tried to copy how she'd seen him eat before. She was learning. Jacob smiled softly. "You're not just watching anymore." She looked up, the spoon halfway to her lips, and blinked at him. Then, for the first time, he saw something else in her eyes. Trust. After she ate, she stood up and walked toward the woods. Jacob thought she was leaving again. But instead of disappearing, she reached behind one of the trees and pulled out something wrapped in strange, glowing fabric. She brought it to him like a gift. When she unwrapped it, Jacob saw metal pieces, broken tech, alien tools. He crouched down and touched one of them. "Where did you get this?" She pointed to the sky. "Fell." He looked at her closely. "Your ship?" She nodded once. Jacob turned the metal over in his hands. It was cracked and scorched. There was a symbol on it, a strange design like a wolf's head, but made of lines and stars. He recognized it from the news. This was not just any alien. She was part of a group the military called the Moonburn. They were fast, silent, and deadly. But the girl in front of him seemed broken. Alone. "Are you the only one left?" he asked quietly. She lowered her head. "Pack, gone." Jacob's chest tightened. She had lost her people. He stood up and pointed to the cabin. "You can stay. It's not much, but it's safe. I have food, water, fire." She didn't answer. But she didn't walk away either. That night, she didn't go back to the forest. She stayed near the fire. Jacob gave her a blanket, though her thick fur likely made it unnecessary. Still, she wrapped it around her shoulders, mimicking his habits. When it got dark, he asked, "What's your name?" She hesitated, then placed a clawed hand on her chest. "Nira." He smiled. "I'm Jacob." She tilted her head. "Jacob." Close enough. Jacob laid down on the porch and looked up at the sky. Nira sat beside him. The stars had returned, small lights blinking above the trees. But one light was moving slow and silent. Jacob frowned. "That's not a star." Nira growled softly. "Hunter." Jacob sat up. "What kind of hunter?" She pointed toward the sky again, eyes wide and tense. "Not mine. Enemy." Jacob looked through his old binoculars. The light was getting closer. It wasn't a ship like hers. It was darker, shaped like a blade, cold and sharp. A silent shadow moving fast. "Is it looking for you?" he asked. Nira didn't answer. She didn't have to. Jacob stood up and walked quickly to the old shed. He opened a locked box and pulled out what he never wanted to touch again, a rifle. It was dusty, but still working. He turned to Nira. "If they come here, I won't let them take you." She looked at the weapon in his hands, then at his eyes. She didn't smile. But she nodded once, strong and sure. The girl who once only watched from the trees was now in his home. And the thing she had run from was almost here. The next day was too quiet. The animals had gone silent again. No birds, no deer, no squirrels. Just stillness in the trees, like the whole forest was holding its breath. Jacob checked the skies every hour. The dark ship he saw the night before was no longer visible, but he knew it was still out there. Watching, waiting. Nira had not moved far from the cabin. She stayed close now, her ears always turning, her body tense like a hunter ready to spring. Her eyes watched the tree lines, and her claws stayed close to the ground. She didn't rest much. Jacob tried to keep her calm. He made soup. He showed her how to light the firewood. He even played an old music box he had forgotten about, soft notes filling the silence. Nira tilted her head at the music and reached out to tiny spinning dancer inside the box. Human song? Yes, Jacob said. It's old. From Earth, she nodded slowly. Pretty. Jacob sat on the step beside her. Will they come for you tonight? Nira didn't answer. Instead, she whispered, they don't stop. When one finds the scent, the others follow. They hunt in silence. Jacob frowned. Like wolves? Her eyes turned sad. No, wolves protect their own. These are not pack. That night, Jacob locked every door and window. He cleaned the rifle and loaded it. He found his old combat knife and strapped it to his belt. He didn't want to fight, but if something came for Nira, he would not let her face it alone. Nira stood by the front door, her claws ready, her back straight. They come after dark. Always after dark. The sun dipped behind the hills, and the woods grew dim. A cold wind swept through the trees. The smell changed burnt metal and sour air. Jacob felt it before he heard it. A low hum. It was too deep to be natural. It rattled the windows slightly and sent small pebbles rolling across the ground. Nira's fur bristled. Her tail twitched. Then Jacob saw the light again, just one this time, moving through the woods. It didn't fly above the trees. It moved between them, low, slow, silent. Is that a drone? Jacob whispered. Nira shook her head. Scout. Alive. Smells of oil and rot. He raised his rifle and looked through the scope. The creature moving through the trees looked like a spider, but taller, with long black limbs and glowing red eyes. Its body was half metal, half flesh, crawling with dark wires. It didn't make a sound. Jacob's finger hovered over the trigger. Can it see us? No, Nira whispered. Not yet. Wind hides us. But soon, it will taste the air. Suddenly, the creature stopped moving. Its head turned slowly toward the cabin. Jacob felt his stomach drop. It knows. Nira leapt forward with a speed that shocked him. She kicked open the door and dashed across the yard on all fours, straight into the woods. Her black fur vanished into the trees like a shadow. Wait! Jacob shouted. But it was too late. A loud screech tore through the night. The forest lit up red for a second, and then the noise stopped. Jacob stood frozen. The rifle in his hands felt heavier now. He ran. Branches hit his face. Leaves crunched underfoot. He followed the red light. He followed the sound. When he reached the clearing, he saw the remains of the creature. It had been ripped apart. Wires hung like torn veins. One of its red eyes still blinked weakly on the ground. And Nira stood over it, panting, her furs soaked with dark liquid, not blood. Not hers. She turned and looked at Jacob. He stepped forward slowly. You killed it? She didn't answer. She only whispered, more come. Always more. Jacob looked up at the sky. More lights were appearing, tiny at first, but growing brighter. This was not just a scout mission. This was a hunt. And now they knew where to find her. He stepped beside her, gripping the rifle tighter. Then we make them regret it. Nira's glowing eyes met his. For the first time she smiled. Not a soft smile, a sharp one, like a wolf ready to fight for her pack. Asterisk. The cabin felt smaller now, tighter, like the walls could not keep danger out anymore. Jacob moved through each room, placing old military traps near doors and windows. He hadn't used them in years, but his hands remembered. Nira followed him, watching closely. She learned fast. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. Her senses were sharp. Her eyes missed nothing. The scout had only been the beginning. Jacob's radio was dead. No signal, no help. The outside world was quiet, and the forest even more so. The only sign of life was the wind moving through the trees like a ghost. They come in groups, Nira said softly, standing by the window. Fast. Strong, no heart, just orders. Jacob looked at her. Why are they after you? Nira turned slowly. Because I didn't obey. I left the war. Jacob paused. You deserted? Her voice was calm. I protected a human child during a battle. My commander ordered me to leave it. I refused, so they marked me. Now I am hunted. Jacob felt something twist in his chest. You saved a child, and they punished you for it. She nodded. You're not the monster they say you are, he said. Ira lowered her head. Not anymore. Jacob walked to the old shed behind the cabin. Inside were pieces of old tech scanners, batteries, a half-working generator. Useless when he came here. But now, he needed every piece. He started fixing what he could. Nira helped. Her claws were gentle, careful. She understood machines better than he expected. We need a warning system, Jacob said. If they come from the north, we won't see them until it's too late. Nira pointed to the hill past the trees. Good view there. They climbed up together, carrying a motion sensor rig tied to a tall branch. The view from the hill showed the whole valley. The forest stretched wide and deep. Far in the distance, lights blinked red, moving like shadows. Jacob adjusted the sensor and pointed it toward the lights. We'll have time to run. Nira shook her head. No run. They chase, only fight. That night, they didn't sleep. They sat by the fire in silence. Jacob kept his rifle close. Nira sharpened the blade made from one of the alien scout's arms. Its edge gleamed like glass. He looked at her, hand strong but tired. Do you miss your pack? He asked. Nira looked into the flames. Every night. Jacob leaned forward. You're not alone now. She didn't speak. But she shifted slightly, just enough that her arm touched his. It was the smallest gesture, but it meant everything. Then the sensor clicked. 1. Beep. Then 2. Then 4. Jacob stood fast. Nira's ears twitched. The sound was distant, but growing. He looked through the scope of his rifle. Shapes moved through the woods, not just 1, not 5. At least 10, and they weren't walking. They were crawling. Jacob grabbed his radio and tried. Again. Static. He looked at Nira. We hold here. We fight together. Nira rose slowly, like a storm forming behind calm skies. Her black fur shimmered in the firelight. Her claws flexed. Her eyes glowed. Then she said one word. Pack. Jacob nodded. Yeah, pack. The forest roared with unnatural sound, metal claws, screeching teeth, red lights blinking like hunting eyes. The first wave was almost at the edge of the clearing. Nira dropped to all fours. Jacob raised his rifle, and the battle for the cabin began. The first creature leaped from the trees, all metal and bone, its claws flashing red in the moonlight. Jacob fired. The shot hit its chest and it dropped hard. But more came. Many more. The clearing became a war zone. Nira was a blur of speed and strength. She moved like lightning, dodging, slashing, tearing through the enemies with savage grace. Her claws cut through armor. Her teeth found soft joints between metal plates. Jacob stayed at her back, firing carefully. He didn't waste bullets. Every shot counted. He covered her when she fell. She pulled him up when he stumbled. They fought. Like they had done this before. Like they were born to do it together. But the enemy didn't stop. More crawled from the dark faster now. Some were spider-like, others long and snake-shaped with sharp spinning blades. A flying drone shot at the roof, setting part of the cabin on fire. Sparks lit the sky orange. Jacob shouted, "Back to the porch!" Nira leapt over a burning log and landed beside him. Her fur was smoking. Her arms were bleeding, but she stood tall. He handed her the alien blade again. "We fall here if we don't stop them." She looked at the fire, then at him. "You don't run?" Jacob shook his head. "Never again." The creature screamed metal mixed with rage and charged as one. The ground shook under their steps, but the trap worked. The motion sensor tripped the mines. Jacob had buried around the fence. A bright flash. A wall of fire. Half of the front line exploded. Bodies flew. Wires snapped. Ash covered the trees. The others hesitated. Jacob stepped forward. "Come on, you bastards." But then, the biggest one arrived. It walked upright, taller than a truck. Its body was black metal with red symbols glowing across its arms. Its face had no eyes. Only a long mouth filled with saw-like teeth. It spoke in a broken voice. "Return, Moonburn, traitor." Nira stepped in front of Jacob. "Never." The creature raised its arm and fired. The shot hit her square in the chest. Jacob screamed as she fell. He fired back, emptying his rifle, hitting the giant creature in the neck. But it didn't fall. It roared and rushed him. Jacob ran inside the burning cabin, grabbed the last grenade, and pulled the pin. He waited until the giant stepped through the door. Then he threw it. Boom. The front of the cabin exploded in light and smoke. Jacob was thrown backwards. He hit the ground hard. His ears rang. Everything was blurry, but he could still move. He crawled through the ashes, coughing. Then he saw her, Nira, lying still near the porch. Her eyes were closed. Smoke rose from her fur. No. He dropped beside her and lifted her head gently. "Nira, stay with me." Her body was warm, but her breathing was weak. "Don't leave," Jacob whispered. "Not now. We made it. You're safe. You're not alone anymore." Then her fingers moved. Her eyes opened slowly. "Jacob," she whispered. He laughed, even with tears in his eyes. "Yeah, I'm here." She smiled faintly. "You smell like smoke," he grinned. "So do you." More lights lit up the sky, but this time they weren't red. Jacob looked up. A large shadow moved across the stars, shaped like a wolf's head made of steel and light. Nira's eyes widened. "Not enemy. A ship?" She nodded slowly. "My people, survivors." The war hadn't taken them all. Jacob helped her sit up as the ship descended. For the first time, the forest wasn't silent from fear. It was silent from peace. But deep inside, both Jacob and Nira knew this story wasn't over yet. Not until they chose how it would end. The sky rumbled gently as the alien ship landed. Behind the trees, it made no sound of war, only soft energy humming, like music from another world. Jacob held Nira steady as the ship lowered a wide platform down to the forest floor. Strange symbols glowed along its edge. Then figures stepped out, tall like Nira, with black fur and glowing silver eyes. Some wore armor, others long coats, marked with the same wolf head crest Jacob had seen on Nira's broken tech. They approached slowly, their bodies tense, weapons in hand. Jacob raised his hands. "She's hurt. She saved me." Nira stood weakly, leaning on him. She looked at the leader, a tall female with scars on her cheek and glowing rings on her neck. Nira whispered something in their language. The leader's expression softened. She gave a short nod. The others lowered their weapons. Jacob exhaled in relief. The leader stepped forward and placed her clawed hand on Nira's shoulder. "Moonburn." "Nira," she said in deep, clear English. "We thought you were dead." "I lived," Nira answered. "I ran, I protected." She pointed at Jacob. The leader looked him over. "A human?" Nira nodded. "He gave me fire, shelter, trust." The alien leader turned to him. "You fought the machines?" Jacob nodded. "She saved me first." The leader's face didn't change, but her voice grew quiet. "The war spreads. More of the hunters are coming. Earth will not stay quiet. Jacob looked around at the damaged trees, the broken machines, the smoke still rising from his burned cabin. Then what happens now? Nira looked up at him. Her voice was soft. You can come with us. We go far, safe places. Jacob blinked. Leave Earth? You have no pack here, she said. Come be mine. His heart beat heavy in his chest. For so long, he had been alone, fighting, hiding. Now something was asking him to belong again. He looked at the ship, at the moonburn warriors, at the stars now clearing above the forest. He looked at Nira. I don't care where we go, he said. As long as I go with you. Nira smiled. This time, it was warm, not sharp. Not guarded, just full of quiet joy. She took his hand, her claws folding gently around his fingers. Her strength had returned. Together, they stepped onto the platform. The moonburn surrounded them in silence, watching but not judging. The ship lifted into the sky, leaving behind the forest, the broken machines, the ruined cabin, and the war. Below, as Earth grew smaller behind them, Jacob looked at Nira one last time. You waited at the edge of the woods every night, he said. She nodded. I was waiting for a reason to stay alive. He held her hand tighter. Now you don't have to wait anymore. And above the world that once tried to kill them both, an alien werewolf girl and a lone human soldier disappeared into the stars together.